I remember the moment everything changed. The air felt thick with uncertainty, and the silence between heartbeats seemed to stretch into an eternity of unspoken fears. Bethany wasn't just another village. It was a landscape of raw human emotion, where hope and despair danced their most intricate choreography. My hands trembled as I watched Martha pacing near the courtyard, her movements sharp with contained anxiety. The messenger had returned hours ago, his words hanging like a shadow. Lazarus was gravely ill. And Jesus, our beloved teacher, our hope, remained distant, seemingly unmoved by our desperate plea. We had seen Jesus perform miracles. We knew his power. But now, with each passing moment, something darker crept into our hearts, the suffocating whisper of doubt. What if this time he was too late? What if this time our faith would not be enough? Maria sat in the corner, her eyes red from weeping, her silence more profound than any words could express. The weight of potential loss pressed against the walls of our home, threatening to crush us beneath its immensity. We weren't just facing a potential death. We were confronting the most primal human terror, the moment when everything we love might slip irrevocably beyond our reach. Our entire world had become a single, suspended moment of anticipation. Would Jesus come? Could he truly do what seemed impossible? The line between hope and despair was so razor-thin that breathing itself felt like a delicate negotiation. In Bethany, time moved differently. Each heartbeat carried the potential of transformation, each breath a prayer that hovered between surrender and desperate expectation. We didn't know it then, but we were about to witness something that would challenge everything we understood about life, death, and divine intervention. The stones beneath our feet held generations of stories, of loss, of waiting, of unexpected redemption. And now, our story was about to become part of that sacred narrative. A story that would reveal how divine love confronts human limitation, how hope emerges from the darkest valleys of human experience. Little did we know that what seemed like an ending was actually a beginning, that the pain we were experiencing was merely the canvas upon which a miracle would be painted, that our deepest fears were about to become the backdrop for an extraordinary revelation of divine power and compassionate presence. Something was coming. Something that would forever alter our understanding of what is possible when human vulnerability meets supernatural grace. And it all began in those moments of profound, agonizing waiting. The air grew thick with unspoken tensions as we waited. I watched Martha meticulously arrange funeral linens, her hands moving with mechanical precision, a desperate attempt to control something, anything, in the face of impending loss. Each fold was a silent prayer, each movement a rebellion against the crushing weight of uncertainty. Whispers traveled through Bethany like wind-carried shadows. People spoke in hushed tones about Lazarus, about our family, about the mysterious teacher who seemed to have abandoned us in our deepest moment of need. I could feel the community's collective breath, suspended between sympathy and judgment. Our memories of Jesus felt increasingly distant. Where was the compassionate teacher who had walked among us, who had spoken of God's intimate care? The silence was becoming unbearable, transforming from a mere absence into an active, painful presence. Every moment without his arrival felt like a personal rejection, a divine indifference that cut deeper than any physical wound. Maria's grief was raw, uncontained, a living thing that seemed to breathe and pulse within our small dwelling. Her tears weren't just for Lazarus. They represented something more profound, the human experience of feeling abandoned when we need divine intervention most critically. I recognized in her weeping the universal language of vulnerability, of wrestling with faith when circumstances seem insurmountably dark. The village began preparing for what seemed inevitable. Funeral preparations started quietly, respectfully. Women gathered herbs for embalming. Men discussed practical arrangements. Yet beneath these practical actions churned a profound spiritual turbulence, an unspoken challenge to everything we believed about divine promises and spiritual power. My internal landscape mirrored the external environment, structured actions masking deep emotional chaos. I understood Martha's compulsive organizing, her need to create order amid potential devastation. We were two sides of the same wounded heart. She through calculated control, I through raw emotional exposure. Underneath our individual responses lurked a shared, primal question: could faith truly sustain us when confronted with absolute loss? This wasn't merely about Lazarus's potential death, but about our fundamental understanding of divine relationship. Was God truly present, truly listening, truly caring? The boundary between hope and resignation grew increasingly blurred. Each passing hour felt like a subtle erosion of our spiritual foundations, challenging everything we thought we understood about divine timing and compassionate intervention. Twilight approached, casting long shadows across our courtyard, a visual metaphor for the darkness threatening to consume our fragile hope. We waited. We wondered. We wrestled with a silence more profound than any words could express. As darkness settled, an unexpected tremor rippled through our community. The anticipated grief transformed into something more complex, a collective spiritual wrestling that defied simple explanation. My perception shifted, recognizing this moment wasn't merely about Lazarus's potential death, but about confronting the very boundaries of human understanding. Rumors began circulating through Bethany's narrow streets. People whispered about Jesus's delay, their theories ranging from strategic intention to potential abandonment. Each speculation carried emotional weight, revealing how deeply this situation challenged our theological assumptions. The uncertainty became a crucible, burning away superficial faith and exposing our most fundamental spiritual vulnerabilities. Neighboring families started arriving, their presence both comforting and overwhelming. Their compassionate gestures, bringing food, offering silent support, highlighted the communal nature of our suffering. Yet beneath these expressions of solidarity, an unspoken tension vibrated. Would divine intervention truly manifest, or would we be left to navigate this profound loss alone? My internal landscape became a battlefield of competing emotions. Intellectual comprehension battled raw emotional experience. I recognized how grief disrupts rational thought, transforming our most carefully constructed belief systems into fragile constructs. Our theological frameworks suddenly seemed inadequate, unable to contain the complexity of human suffering. Interestingly, Jesus' absence created a paradoxical spiritual awakening. His delay forced us to confront uncomfortable theological questions. Does divine love always align with human expectations? Can faith survive when circumstances contradict our understanding of God's nature? These inquiries emerged not as abstract theological debates, but as visceral, life-altering explorations. The village's spiritual ecology transformed. What began as a personal family crisis became a communal theological examination. Each resident projected their own unresolved spiritual questions onto our situation, making Lazarus's condition a collective mirror reflecting deeper existential uncertainties. Wounded spirits seek connection, and in this moment, our shared vulnerability became our most profound strength. We discovered that authentic spirituality emerges not from certainty, but from courageous acknowledgement of our limitations. Our collective breath became a prayer, unstructured, raw, desperately honest. As midnight approached, an unexpected stillness descended. The typical nighttime sounds of Bethany, livestock, distant conversations, children's occasional cries, seemed to pause. In this suspended moment, anticipation acquired a tangible quality, almost becoming a living entity itself. We weren't just waiting, we were being transformed by the waiting. Our experience transcended individual grief, becoming a universal narrative about human resilience. We were learning that spiritual growth often occurs in those inexplicable intervals between expectation and resolution. Those sacred spaces where faith is neither comfortable nor convenient, but absolutely necessary. The night continued its silent vigil, holding our collective breath, our unresolved questions, our fragile hope, waiting, always waiting. The air grew thick with an intensity beyond mere anticipation. My entire being felt suspended between hope and despair, understanding that some moments transform everything we believed possible. Spiritual wrestling isn't theoretical, it's visceral, consuming every fiber of one's existence. Emerging from our family's immediate grief, I recognized something larger unfolding. Our personal anguish had become a canvas revealing deeper human experiences of vulnerability. Each heartbeat carried complex emotional territories, not just sorrow, but profound existential questioning that transcends individual circumstances. Witnessing Maria's unrestrained emotional landscape, I understood how different souls process profound uncertainty. She embodied pure emotional authenticity, refusing to mask her raw vulnerability. Her tears weren't weakness, but a courageous declaration of genuine human feeling. Unlike my methodical approach of managing pain through structured responses, she allowed her inner world complete emotional expression. Gradually, our community's collective energy shifted. What began as private family suffering metamorphosed into a shared spiritual examination. Neighbors no longer observed from distant sympathy. They became active participants in our unfolding narrative. Their presence created an unexpected solidarity, transforming individual pain into a communal experience of spiritual resilience. Intriguingly, this crucible of uncertainty revealed something profound about human nature. We're fundamentally creatures seeking meaning, desperately attempting to construct narrative frameworks that provide comprehension amid chaos. My intellectual mind recognized this psychological mechanism. When confronted with incomprehensible circumstances, humans instinctively craft explanatory stories that offer psychological comfort. Theological assumptions crumbled magnificently around us. Traditional religious understanding felt inadequate. Simplistic platitudes dissolved against the complexity of authentic human suffering. We discovered spirituality isn't about having perfect answers, but courageously inhabiting uncomfortable questions. Each moment became an invitation to radical spiritual authenticity. Whispers traveled through Bethany's narrow streets, carrying rumors, speculations, and unspoken fears. People's reactions revealed more about their internal spiritual landscapes than any carefully constructed theological statement. Some responded with pragmatic acceptance, others with raw emotional turbulence, each perspective a unique window into human spiritual complexity. My awareness expanded beyond immediate personal experience. This wasn't merely about our family's potential loss, but a universal human narrative of confronting limitation, uncertainty, and the profound mystery of existence. We were participants in something larger, a collective exploration of faith's authentic boundaries. Interestingly, our shared vulnerability became our most significant strength. By acknowledging our collective uncertainty, we created space for genuine spiritual encounter. Traditional religious frameworks dissolved, replaced by a more nuanced, compassionate understanding of human spiritual experience. As twilight deepened, an unexpected stillness descended. The boundary between external environment and internal emotional landscape blurred. We weren't just waiting. We were being profoundly transformed by the waiting itself. Something sacred emerged in that liminal space between expectation and resolution. My understanding of suffering transformed that night, not through intellectual discourse, but through visceral, embodied experience. The boundary between personal anguish and collective human vulnerability dissolved, revealing intricate emotional landscapes previously hidden from casual perception. Professional mourners arrived, their ritualistic wailing creating a haunting counterpoint to our internal turbulence. Their practiced grief felt simultaneously authentic and performative, a cultural mechanism for processing loss that transcended individual experience. Each carefully choreographed sob carried generational wisdom about human resilience, suggesting our current struggle connected to something far more expansive than our immediate circumstances. Subtle atmospheric shifts signaled deeper transformations. Neighborhood dogs grew unusually quiet, as if sensing impending spiritual magnitude. Household objects seemed to vibrate with unspoken tension. Clay water vessels, woven textiles, wooden furniture, all witnesses to our unfolding drama. Even inanimate elements appeared charged with anticipatory energy. Emerging psychological patterns fascinated me. Some community members responded with analytical detachment, others with raw emotional exposure. Each reaction represented a unique coping mechanism, revealing intricate psychological landscapes beneath surface behaviors. We weren't merely experiencing loss. We were collectively negotiating humanity's most profound existential challenge. Generational trauma surfaced unexpectedly. Whispered family stories about previous losses circulated, creating intricate emotional tapestries connecting past and present suffering. These narratives weren't mere historical accounts, but living, breathing entities that shaped our collective spiritual understanding. Our current experience became a continuation of something much larger, a multi-generational dialogue about human vulnerability. Unexpected social dynamics emerged. Traditional hierarchies dissolved as shared vulnerability created unprecedented intimacy. Wealthy merchants stood alongside laborers, united by a common emotional experience that transcended socioeconomic boundaries. Our communal pain became an extraordinary equalizer, revealing deeper human interconnectedness. Physiological responses fascinated me. Stress hormones coursed through our bodies, creating a shared biochemical landscape of anticipation and fear. Our nervous systems synchronized, generating a collective emotional resonance that defied individual boundaries. We were experiencing something beyond personal suffering, a profound, interconnected human experience. Spiritual questioning intensified. Traditional theological frameworks crumbled, replaced by raw, unfiltered spiritual exploration. We weren't seeking comfortable explanations, but courageously inhabiting uncomfortable uncertainties. Each moment became an invitation to radical spiritual authenticity, challenging superficial religious constructs. Memory and anticipation intertwined mysteriously. Past experiences of loss merged with potential future scenarios, creating a complex emotional algorithm that defied linear understanding. We existed simultaneously in multiple temporal dimensions, remembering, experiencing, and projecting, our consciousness expanding beyond immediate circumstances. As midnight deepened, an extraordinary collective transformation occurred. Individual suffering merged into a unified spiritual experience, transcending personal limitations. We discovered profound resilience emerges not from avoiding pain, but from courageously inhabiting our most vulnerable moments. Our waiting became a sacred practice, an active, transformative spiritual discipline that reshaped our understanding of human experience. The night's profound silence bore witness to our internal turbulence. My analytical mind began dissecting the intricate psychological mechanisms of grief, recognizing how profound loss transforms individual consciousness. We weren't merely experiencing an event. We were participating in a complex emotional metamorphosis that challenged every previously established spiritual framework. Spiritual understanding requires radical vulnerability. Each breath became a silent negotiation between despair and potential redemption. The boundary between personal anguish and collective human struggle dissolved, revealing intricate emotional landscapes previously concealed beneath societal expectations of composure. Generations of familial trauma surfaced unexpectedly. Whispered ancestral narratives created emotional tapestries connecting past suffering with present uncertainty. These weren't merely historical accounts, but living, breathing entities that shaped our fundamental understanding of resilience. Our current predicament represented a continuation of something far more expansive, a multi-generational dialogue about human vulnerability's profound complexity. Physiological responses fascinated my analytical sensibilities. Neurochemical cascades generated extraordinary internal landscapes, synchronizing our nervous systems beyond individual boundaries. Stress hormones created intricate biochemical symphonies, transforming personal pain into a collective energetic experience that defied traditional comprehension. Psychological defense mechanisms emerged with stunning complexity. Some community members constructed elaborate intellectual barriers, while others surrendered to unfiltered emotional exposure. Each reaction represented a unique survival strategy, revealing sophisticated psychological adaptations to potentially devastating circumstances. Theological assumptions crumbled magnificently around us. Traditional religious understanding felt woefully inadequate. Simplistic platitudes dissolved against the intricate reality of authentic suffering. We discovered spirituality isn't about presenting perfect explanations, but courageously inhabiting uncomfortable uncertainties. Each moment became an invitation to radical spiritual authenticity. Subtle atmospheric shifts signaled deeper transformations. Neighborhood sounds grew muted, as if the environment itself recognized the impending spiritual magnitude. Household objects seemed charged with unspoken tension. Everything appeared to vibrate with anticipatory energy, bearing silent witness to our unfolding drama. Social dynamics transformed unexpectedly. Traditional hierarchical structures dissolved as shared vulnerability created unprecedented intimacy. Socioeconomic distinctions momentarily disappeared, united by a profound emotional experience that transcended superficial societal divisions. Our collective pain became an extraordinary equalizer, revealing deeper human interconnectedness. Memory and anticipation intertwined mysteriously, creating complex emotional algorithms that defied linear understanding. We existed simultaneously across multiple temporal dimensions, remembering, experiencing, projecting, our consciousness expanding beyond immediate circumstances. This extraordinary state of being represented a profound spiritual negotiation between what was, what is, and what might become. As midnight deepened, an extraordinary collective transformation occurred. Individual suffering merged into a unified spiritual experience that transcended personal limitations. We discovered that authentic resilience emerges not from avoiding pain, but from courageously inhabiting our most vulnerable moments. Our waiting transformed from passive endurance into an active, transformative spiritual discipline, reshaping our understanding of human potential with each breath. I realized something profound that night. Grief doesn't follow rational pathways. It meanders through our inner landscape like an unpredictable river, carving unexpected channels of emotional revelation. My intellectual defenses, carefully constructed over years of strategic emotional management, began crumbling under the weight of imminent loss. Psychological survival mechanisms fascinate me. Each person's response to potential tragedy reveals intricate personal narratives, hidden emotional architectures we rarely acknowledge during ordinary moments. Martha's methodical preparations, Maria's unrestrained weeping, two distinct survival strategies emerging from identical pain. Proximity to loss transforms perception radically. Suddenly, mundane household objects acquire extraordinary significance. A clay water pitcher, a woven blanket, the worn wooden table, each becomes a silent witness to our unfolding human drama. These inanimate objects absorbed our collective tension, reflecting back our most vulnerable emotional states. Neurologically, extreme stress creates remarkable perceptual shifts. My sensory awareness sharpened, capturing minute environmental details with unprecedented clarity. Dust motes suspended in afternoon light, distant bird calls, the almost imperceptible rhythmic breathing of my companions. Everything acquired heightened symbolic meaning. Spiritual wrestling requires tremendous internal energy. Traditional religious platitudes dissolved, revealing a more nuanced understanding of faith. We weren't passive recipients of divine intervention, but active participants in a profound metaphysical negotiation. Each breath became a silent dialogue between human limitation and potential transcendence. Cultural grief rituals emerged spontaneously, revealing deep communal wisdom. Neighbors arrived bearing symbolic offerings, bread, dried herbs, carefully folded textiles. These weren't mere gestures of sympathy, but intricate communication systems encoding multigenerational emotional intelligence. Our current suffering connected to broader human experiences of loss and resilience. Psychological research suggests traumatic experiences activate dormant genetic memory. Perhaps our individual grief resonated with ancestral emotional landscapes, triggering complex biochemical and neurological responses beyond immediate comprehension. We were simultaneously experiencing personal pain and participating in a broader, multigenerational emotional transmission. Neurochemically, extreme emotional states create extraordinary internal transformations. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline generated heightened awareness, simultaneously protecting and exposing our most vulnerable psychological territories. Our bodies became sophisticated emotional instruments, calibrating complex responses to potential catastrophic loss. Interpersonal dynamics shifted unexpectedly during this liminal space. Traditional social hierarchies dissolved as shared uncertainty created unprecedented intimacy. Wealthy merchants, laborers, elderly wisdom keepers. All stood united by a common emotional experience that transcended socioeconomic boundaries. Profound spiritual insights emerge not from comfortable explanations, but from courageously inhabiting uncomfortable emotional territories. We discovered resilience isn't about avoiding pain, but about developing sophisticated internal navigation systems that transform suffering into profound personal growth. The night continued its silent vigil, holding our collective breath, waiting, always waiting, for something beyond our current comprehension. As dawn's first light crept across Bethany's landscape, an unexpected stillness settled over our household. The air felt charged with an inexplicable tension, a delicate balance between despair and something deeper, more mysterious. My analytical mind grappled with the intricate emotional terrain we were navigating. Grief, I realized, isn't a linear experience. It moves like wind through complex internal landscapes, creating unpredictable emotional topographies. Maria's raw emotional exposure contrasted sharply with my strategic processing. Where she allowed feeling to flow unrestrained, I constructed intricate intellectual barriers, attempting to maintain some semblance of control. Neurological research suggests traumatic experiences activate profound internal mechanisms. Our bodies become sophisticated emotional instruments, generating complex biochemical responses that extend far beyond conscious understanding. Stress hormones don't just create physiological reactions. They generate entire internal narratives, reshaping our perception of reality. Generational wisdom whispered through our suffering. Each moment connected us to broader human experiences of vulnerability. Our current struggle wasn't isolated. It represented a sophisticated emotional dialogue spanning generations, encoding survival strategies passed through unspoken familial languages. Interpersonal dynamics transformed subtly. Traditional social boundaries dissolved as shared uncertainty created unprecedented intimacy. Neighbors who might typically maintain careful distances now stood shoulder to shoulder, united by an unspoken understanding of human fragility. Spiritual insight emerged not through comfortable explanations, but by developing sophisticated internal navigation systems. We were learning to transmute suffering into profound personal growth, recognizing that emotional resilience requires radical vulnerability. Proximity to potential loss creates extraordinary perceptual shifts. Mundane objects acquired heightened significance: a worn textile, a clay vessel, the weathered wooden table. These silent witnesses absorbed our collective tension, reflecting back the intricate emotional landscape we inhabited. Our experience represented more than individual grief. We were participating in a complex metaphysical negotiation, where human limitation encountered potential transcendence. Each breath became a silent dialogue between vulnerability and mysterious hope. Cultural grief rituals emerged spontaneously, revealing deep communal wisdom. Symbolic offerings, carefully selected herbs, meticulously folded textiles, communicated complex emotional languages. These weren't mere gestures of sympathy, but sophisticated transmissions of ancestral emotional intelligence. Something profound was unfolding. Beyond our immediate circumstances, we were experiencing a transformative moment that challenged every established understanding of suffering, resilience, and spiritual encounter. As the first rays of dawn pierced the heavy atmosphere of our dwelling, I sensed we had crossed an invisible threshold. Something fundamental had shifted in our collective consciousness, a metamorphosis far more profound than mere external circumstances could explain. Our shared journey through uncertainty had become an alchemical process, transforming raw human vulnerability into something resembling spiritual wisdom. The boundaries between individual and communal experience had dissolved, revealing an intricate tapestry of human resilience that defied traditional understanding. Each breath now carried the weight of unspoken revelations, each moment pregnant with potential transformation. We were no longer passive recipients of circumstance, but active participants in a deeply nuanced spiritual dialogue. Reflecting on our journey, I recognized how suffering functions not as a destructive force, but as a sophisticated mechanism of human growth. Like geological shifts happening beneath seemingly stable landscapes, Our internal terrains were being reshaped by forces both visible and invisible. The pain we experienced wasn't merely an obstacle, but a profound teacher, revealing layers of strength we hadn't previously acknowledged. Psychological and spiritual boundaries blurred in extraordinary ways. Our individual narratives, once perceived as separate and distinct, now revealed themselves as interconnected threads in a larger, more complex fabric of human experience. The distance between personal anguish and universal understanding had dramatically condensed, creating a more expansive perspective on human resilience. Something sacred emerged from our collective wrestling, a recognition that vulnerability is not weakness, but the most sophisticated form of human courage. Our shared journey had become a living testament to the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to transform profound uncertainty into meaningful understanding. We were witnessing a metamorphosis that transcended individual experience, touching something fundamentally universal. The language of our suffering had become a dialect of hope, nuanced, multi-layered, impossible to translate through conventional theological or psychological frameworks. We had entered a realm where traditional explanations dissolved, replaced by a more intuitive, embodied wisdom that spoke directly to the soul's deepest longings. As morning light continued its gentle invasion, I understood we stood at a pivotal moment, not just of personal resolution, but of collective awakening. The narrative we had been living was simultaneously intimate and expansive, personal and universal. We had become living metaphors of human potential, our individual stories weaving into a broader tapestry of spiritual understanding. The horizon beckoned, not with promises of easy resolution, but with an invitation to embrace the beautiful complexity of our shared human journey. Something profound was preparing to unfold, something that would redefine our understanding of loss, hope, and spiritual transformation. As the first rays of sunlight spilled across Bethany's weathered stones, I realized we had journeyed through something far more profound than a personal tragedy. Our experience with Lazarus's illness and potential resurrection was never just about one family's grief. It was a profound meditation on human vulnerability, divine compassion, and the intricate landscape of faith. The transformation we underwent wasn't merely external, but deeply internal. Each moment of uncertainty had stripped away our protective layers, revealing a raw, authentic spiritual terrain where traditional theological constructs dissolved, replaced by a more nuanced understanding of divine interaction. We weren't passive recipients of circumstance, but active participants in a complex spiritual dialogue that challenged everything we previously believed about suffering, hope, and redemption. Our shared experience exposed the sophisticated mechanisms of human resilience. Pain, we discovered, isn't just a destructive force, but a powerful mechanism of spiritual growth. Like geological shifts happening beneath seemingly stable landscapes, our internal worlds were being reshaped by forces both visible and invisible. The boundaries between individual and communal experience had blurred, creating an intricate tapestry of interconnected human experience. What emerged was a language more subtle than words, a dialect of hope that spoke directly to the soul's deepest longing. We learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, but the most sophisticated form of human courage. Our wrestling with uncertainty had transformed from a personal struggle into a universal narrative about the human capacity to find meaning amid profound challenges. In those suspended moments between despair and potential miracle, we discovered something extraordinary. True faith isn't about eliminating uncertainty, but about developing the internal resilience to navigate it with grace. Our experience with potential loss had become an alchemical process, transmuting raw emotional pain into a deeper, more nuanced spiritual understanding. As I watched the morning light gradually illuminate Bethany's narrow streets, I understood we had crossed an invisible threshold. We were no longer the same people who had begun this journey. We had been fundamentally reshaped by our encounter with profound uncertainty. Our story was a living testament to the remarkable human capacity to find hope when traditional frameworks of understanding collapse. The horizon before us wasn't about resolution, but continuous transformation. We had learned that spiritual growth isn't a destination, but an ongoing journey of radical openness, where each challenge becomes an invitation to deeper understanding. Our pain had become our teacher, our vulnerability our greatest strength. In this moment, I recognized that our experience transcended our individual narrative. We had become living metaphors of human potential, witnesses to the extraordinary grace that emerges when we surrender our need for control and embrace the mysterious, unpredictable nature of divine love. As Bethany awakened around me, I knew our story was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning, a continuous unfolding of hope, resilience, and profound spiritual awakening.